Welcome to the Share Talk interview, and it's with Thor Mining and with the CEO of Thor Mining, who is Mick Billing. How are you today, Mick?
Well, thanks, Zach, and nice to see you again.
Nice to clear up the fact that you're from Australia, not from New Zealand. I don't know how, that's a horrible error to make, but hopefully there'll be no errors in the interview today. Seen your share price improve over recent weeks and months. It seems to be that you're gradually gaining the technical momentum or the price action momentum. Is that being reflected on the ground as well?
I think so, Zach. I guess it's fair to say that we've had some pretty good results in the last month or two. The share price took a bit of a dip in the last few weeks, just immediately prior to releasing the resource announcement upgrade the other day. And while I guess, no matter how right I am, the market's never wrong. They were expecting a number perhaps a little bit before we put it out. But that resource upgrade we think is very positive. It has given us an inventory of a bit over 30,000 tonnes of contained tungsten. Now, for those who don't understand tungsten, and I think there's probably more that understand copper and gold than they do tungsten, and that's just a fact of life. 30,000 tonnes of contained tungsten, plus the other bits of copper and silver and zinc we may have, is probably as good as about 150,000 tonnes of contained copper. Now that's not a bad sort of deposit in most people's language. You can't make a one-for-one comparison, but it's of that order, and we're pretty happy with that. We could be happier. We could have a bigger resource, and we're working towards that. But I think the right things are happening in the project on the ground, and will continue to happen for a little while yet.
So the first stage of the mining cycle process, where you're justifying your market cap and you're pleasing investors, or you're giving them the information they want, has been done. What's the next stage now?
We're going to work towards building a resource inventory, or continue building a resource inventory at Pilot Mountain, and we think there will end up being of or around 50,000 tonnes of contained tungsten at a pretty good grade. Some of the other grades of in tungsten deposits around the globe that are mooted are much lower than we have here at Pilot Mountain. So that should stand us in pretty good stead, we hope. We're going to drill the Good Hope deposit in July, August. There's not a lot known about that. There's not as much historical drilling as there was on for garnet, and for that matter gunmetal and desert scheelite, the other three. But one intersection there had 36 metres of over 0.4% tungsten, nearly 0.5% zinc, plus a bit of copper. So we need to follow that up, and we're planning to do so quite soon.
Just want to talk about the tungsten market, because that seems to be somewhat of a Cinderella in terms of the metal space at the moment. What's your view on that?
Tungsten's improved by about 14% since January 1 on the spot market. That's not a bad improvement compared with January 2016. I haven't done the maths, but it's probably more like 30-odd% up. So we're pretty happy with that, but it's still at compared with the last 7 or 8 years at relatively depressed levels, and I think there's room to move. A couple of people who are in the tungsten concentrate production, other mines, have done floor prices with people they sell their concentrate to well above the market. So I suspect that there's room over the next year or so for the tungsten price to improve by another 20-25%.
Right. I mean, the question is always, are you a company where even if tungsten prices remain where they are, you're making money, you're doing well?
We have a project here at Pilot Mountain that, well, we've not done a feasibility study, and probably won't start working on things of that nature until next year, when we've upgraded our resource a little further. We should be able to operate at a scale that would give us costs that would make money even in today's prices. But that's early days. We haven't done sufficient work to be able to say that and defend that strongly.
Right, a question here, which is maybe the obvious question to ask from a shareholder. Do you regard the Thor Mining team as a strong one?
We do. We've got We've got a very well experienced mining engineer in Dave Thomas, who's worked in many mines. We've got a new appointee to the board, Alistair Middleton, who is a very experienced geologist, both in the field and in banking. And Gervais and Paul add a lot of market credibility, a lot of smarts. They're very intelligent people. They know the market much better than for example, I do here by spending most of my time in Adelaide. I think we're a pretty well balanced team, and we're a pretty committed group.
So lots of grey hairs and wrinkles on the team.
Yes, I'm not the oldest.
Wisdom, words of wisdom. I mean, wisdom as well.
Yeah. I'm not the oldest, but yes, there's quite a few decades of accumulated industry experience there.
Right, and then just, I mean, the simple question going forward. What are the milestones for the rest of the year?
Okay, in the first instance, we're segueing away from tungsten, and we're going to drill our Dundas gold deposit. It's not a deposit, our project in June of this year, about 3 weeks' time. It's a relatively small drilling program. We've had Dundas for a little while. We've got some targets to test that have been highlighted by soil sampling. We're going to go and do that work next month. The month after, we'll drill Good Hope back at Pilot Mountain, and we think there is some chance of a further improvement in the resource estimate at Pilot Mountain before the end of the year. There's going to be a fair bit happen.
Right, I mean, just because I mean you've been around these cycles before. China is obviously the biggest customer for everyone. Are you concerned about China? I mean, it's had a downgrade from Moody's. Are you confident? What's your state of mind there?
I'm one of these perennial optimists, Zach. I have to say, if you listen to China's talk about this One Belt, One Road program, I don't know how long it will take. What I do know is that if it is real, the infrastructure requirement to do that is going to be immense, and that will be good for not just tungsten, but gold, iron ore, or not just gold, but copper, iron ore, zinc, the whole shebang. I'm a believer in the growth of over the next 10 to 12 years of India. I think India is growing at a rapid rate. It's not like China, because they have a democracy and a different sort of democracy than some places. But India is growing, and there's a whole bunch of people in India and Africa and other places who are not going to be happy with a mobile phone and a radio and maybe a fridge. They're going to want cars. They're going to want better roads, better infrastructure. All these things are good for the commodity cycle, and that includes tungsten.
And of course, the king of infrastructure, Donald Trump. Have you got any hopes for him?
I think Mr. Trump is finding it a little more difficult to implement things than it was to talk about them. Having said that, he still, by the sound of it, has a firm commitment to infrastructure work in the United States. That can only help.
But in a way, I mean, the market's already moved up in anticipation of what he's going to do, and it hasn't moved down, even though it doesn't look like it might, or he's having difficulty doing it. So you've had sort of a gift on that front, haven't you? Really?
I think so, and I think generally economic conditions in the US were probably on the up a little bit by the time he came in anyway. Whether he's had a big contribution to that, or it was something going to happen anyway, I don't know. I don't particularly care. Right now, I think the US is still a pretty positive place, no matter who is in charge at the moment.
Okay, well, Mick Billing, CEO at Thor Mining, good luck with all your drilling and digging, and come back when you've got some more news.
Look forward to it. Thank you.